Well, it is time for your questions, and we've had a number of them come through.
And before we get into those, I wanted to add one other tip that I had forgotten to mention earlier. That is, when you're cutting vinyl, remember, don't cut too deeply. Always do a test cut, which is one of the functions on the cutter, before you start cutting a long job, and make sure that you're not cutting so deeply that you can feel that line, that scoring in the liner. If you cut too deeply into the release liner, you're going to have problems weeding your vinyl, and it's going to be difficult to get the right combination of transfer tape and weeding. So cut just enough to go through the face film and the adhesive, not too deeply into the release line, because that will cause problems.
Hey, I have a question here from Tammy. She asked, what is the thickest material that she can cut with the QE6000?
Good question. I don't think we covered that. We talked a lot about the 35 mil sandblast stencil for the Q series, but with the QE6000, with 300 grams of force, the thickest that we recommend that you regularly cut is going to be in the 20 to 25 mil range. You can cut the 20 mil and 15 mil glass etch stencils from Hartco, but we don't recommend it for cutting anything beyond that. So if you're going to be cutting things like the 30 mil equalizer or 35 mil sandblast stencil from Hartco, we really recommend that you do that with a Q series, because that's going to be the solution for that kind of material. Anything below 25 mil is going to be fine with the Q6000. And we've got a question here from Jake. He says, I've got a Q130. Can I perf cut on it? And that's going to be, sorry, no. The Q130, and for those of you who don't know, is a previous generation of the Q series. We have the Q100, the Q130, the Q60. Those products don't have the dual position tool holder, and they don't have the trough, and so they're not set up to move the blade over, so it's not cutting over top of the platen when you're doing a perf cut. So it's not really engineered for that application, so we don't really recommend that. Anybody asked, how much longer will my wall vinyl last than using regular vinyl on the wall? That is a kind of a tricky question, but the wall vinyl that we have in that package is called Enduramat, and it's made specifically for wall graphics because it has a removable adhesive. And so the advantage there is that when you remove these wall graphics, as people are usually going to do eventually, it's not going to damage the paint. So now the other side of that is this is also a vinyl that's originally made for fairly long-term outdoor application, so it's rated for 6 years outdoors in terms of resistance to fading, cracking, things like that. But if you use it indoors, you're going to be able to use it on your wall graphics without damaging the paint. I should also mention that with any removable vinyl, if you leave it in place long enough, it will become permanent. So these vinyls are normally designed to be removable on painted walls for up to about 2 years, 2.5 to 3 years. If you leave it in place for 4 years, it's going to be permanent. So when you pull it off, you may have some risk of damaging paint. Alex asks, can other blades such as Roland blades be used on these cutters? That is a negatory. Each manufacturer uses a slightly different approach, and as we mentioned in this presentation, the manufacturer for this particular product is Graphtec, and they go a little bit different way. So you cannot use Roland blades in a Q series or a Q6000 cutter. There is a Q45 blade that we have for that. It's very affordable, works perfectly with the blue top blade holder, and for the 60-degree blade, you can put that on that same blade holder, or you can go with a heavier duty 1.5 millimeter shaft blade with a red blade holder for really tough applications like cutting paint protection film, things like that. Oh, that reminds me, we did have a paint protection film question from Rod Pyle that I forgot to mention. Rod asked, can you cut paint protection film or the Q series? And the answer is yes, you can. This is an application that is for protecting your vehicle from rock chips and things. It's usually clear, so you can't see it, but it's a very thick film that molds over the front end of a vehicle and is usually put over the bumper, the front mirrors, and things like that. That is a common application for the Q series, normally the Q42, which is also used for window tint applications, but you can use it also for paint protection film. Use a 60-degree blade and start with around 30 with your force setting, and that should give you enough force to cut through, and that will handle the paint protection films on the market from 3M and some of the other manufacturers.
A couple more questions.
And Randy asks, on the Q42, which position would you use for standard cutting vinyl in terms of that dual position tool holder? And that would be in the back position, because again, that's going to be over the cutter protection strip, and that's where you want to cut normally. So if you're cutting normal vinyl, you want to put your blade holder in the back position on the tool holder.
And one more question.
Great question here from Mike. What is the best cutter for cutting window tint film? And I've kind of alluded to that accidentally a minute ago, but for a window tint film, most professionals want to be able to apply the film over the back window in one piece, And so you're going to need at least a 42-inch cutter to do that without seaming it, because seams look unseemly. Sorry,
nice.
bad pun, on the back window of a car. So the most popular product for cutting window tint film is the Q42. It is the smallest you can do for cutting window, back windows in one piece. It cuts it beautifully because, again, of that smart blade landing technology. You can cut very precisely, very softly without having to worry about wadding up the film, which a lot of other cutters do, and that is the most popular application for window tint is a Q42 vinyl cutter.